Let's dive into some market stuff, John. We'll kick things off. Where do you want to start? We've got plenty to talk about. Definitely want to get into this James Lavish clip talking about leverage and debt. We've got the Groman tweet, which is, I'll just bring this up actually. This is kind of a continuation of you can't stop this train. We have shown this chart on the show before, right? And this is what John was talking about. You can't, it's not a party's not going to win office. Maybe you'll get one person in or something in like a small district. If you can really make it work, you can maybe get like a libertarian elected, but you're not going to win as a party, one of the two parties in this country, by promising to crush entitlements, promising to crush defense, promising to crush U.S. treasuries or raise interest rates, et cetera. All that stuff is not going to happen. These are the expenditures here for the U.S. government. Starts out with HHS, then Social Security, and then the Treasury financing interest payments, and then defense. So this is what Lynn means. Like you can imagine those columns are the train, and they're just not going to stop going up.
Yeah, I would say the kind of big themes of the show are just markets and Bitcoin related markets in general right now. It's going to be this talk of the Bitcoiners know it as nothing stops this train. Even if you don't know that meme, I think traditional investors are realizing the same thing, that it's going to be a continuation of the trends that have been in place already for several years, if not decades. And yeah, the Trump-Elon breakup is whatever we're calling it, is related to all this as well. And so I think it's on the radar of traditional finance people as well. And I guess one thing I would just point out is like what you guys were saying a moment ago, they did try. And in my adult lifetime, this is the most serious any elected officials have been about changing some of these trends. And if you find out within 5 months that they're really not going to be successful doing it, then I don't think you're going to get someone to actually change it. So to me, this is like the validation of nothing stops this train. And just to elaborate on one thing in that Groman chart, the Groman tweet, his text, and Lynn's careful with this too. It's theoretically possible to stop the train, but it results in like crushing entitlement spending. And that's just politically and socially unpalatable. So that everything around nothing stops this train, that's a theme of the show today. And then I think the other one will be the Bitcoin treasury companies. Those are not going away either. There's hot takes on them left and right. There's a lot of people talking about whether those will be the cause of the next Bitcoin cycle. And that feeds into a discussion of what even is the next Bitcoin cycle. So I think that's all stuff we could get into today.
Yeah, man. It's on the nothing stops this train. It's a good point. It's not that it's like theoretically impossible. There's two things. You could either crush entitlement spending, defense spending, but that's just not going to happen. You can't do defense because you can't, and you can't do entitlements because it just politically, as you said, is infeasible. The other way is like a growth miracle, right? Those are the two ways. The second way is you have just an absolute extreme growth breakthrough. AI, everything, GDP is up 10% a quarter for a couple of years, right? That can work too. But I think the important thing for people to know there is these are just these like tail scenarios that are very unlikely to happen. And the thing we're most likely dealing with is just this increasing level of spending and increasing debt burden until the system changes. And so if you try this approach and you try to rein it in, you try to rein in the spending, you try to rein in the deficit, that doesn't work. Like what's left? In my opinion, what's left is you need to use the resources and power that you have to ensure that in the next system, the US is in a favorable position, right? That's the only card that's left. You need to make sure that the end of this system and the transition to the one that follows it is on your terms. And I hope that is what happens. And I think Bitcoin is part of the story there.
Steven, did you see the tweet? Somebody tweeted, even at 10% GDP growth and with a productivity miracle, it still take like years and years to do this.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, I haven't run the numbers, but it seems like this government's going to do what every previous government has done, which is print the money.
Yeah, it truly is a miracle that has to happen, right? It's not like you need to have a growing economy for 5 years or something. Like you need something we've basically never seen before, something akin to the Industrial Revolution at scale. has to happen. And I hope it does.
AI is certainly capable of doing that.
Yeah.
But there is even a risk in that scenario, and Groman has talked about this. It's ultimately good. You want a more productive, efficient, innovative society. That's the direction you want to head for sure. But even if that one comes too quickly, then it's not all roses, because then you have a lot of worker displacement, industry displacement, and people can't necessarily just pivot from one job into this brand new productivity miracle industry. Again, ultimately, over the long term, productivity miracle is good, but you might have some issues on your hands where it's like people are displaced and you have to retrain them. And then you have debates over, do you do a public works retraining? Do they all just train in the private sector? So
I think that's absolutely going to happen, because it's, if you think back like hundreds of years, right? And even more than that, thousands of years of human technological advancement, you could start the exponential curves for tech, like way back, like early tech, and the adoption curves for them going out over centuries and millennia. Now, those curves are happening in like decades, and now 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months. And it's so compressing. We're actually finally at the elbow of the grand asymptote of like exponential technological advancement of humanity. And that's where we are now. Like, we are in that moment, that singularity inflection point, because we don't know what happens next. And it's going to happen so fast. It's going to happen over the next 10 years. Like, we're on the cusp of it all happening right now. It's going to change everything. And it's going to be massive job loss. And it's going to happen way too fast for it to be anywhere near controlled or like comfortable for humanity. That there's going to be a transition period, and it's coinciding with the loss of trust in institutions, the fourth turning ideas. Bitcoin is here disrupting the monetary system itself, which is one of the fundamental base layers of our civilization. So it's all happening in this decade window, kind of starting around now when AI is like approaching human level Turing test. Like, these all pass the Turing test now as we conceive them before AI, right? And it's just every month, massive advances in the capabilities of these technologies. Veo is making beautiful videos, right, that are almost indistinguishable from reality. And anyway, it's going to happen super fast. I think that's why we need Bitcoin. We've been talking about that for a long time. During this transition, talked to Jeff Booth. He's thought a lot about this. Like, where is technology going? We're moving into a more deflationary period, because the actual deflationary effects of technology is going to subsume inflation. It's still been going a deflationary tech despite all of the inflation that's been happening. And we're going to get to the point where we have this abundance. It'll become more evenly spread over time, and we'll have to work, like, we won't have to work nearly as much, and we'll have access to all the things we need to survive a pretty abundant and pretty cheap. And Bitcoin will naturally fit into that deflationary world. It's crazy, guys. I sound like a prepper, like people who build a bunker, but I feel like I'm not building a bunker. I'm with my family. I am taking some measures to try to, like, expecting some bumpy times for my kids as they get in their late teens and 20s and stuff and try to enter into the world independently. And I think we all need to do that. Bitcoin's a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's those two things. If you're the US right now and you're trying to prepare for the century ahead and a changing system, it's huge CapEx investments into AI, and it's buying Bitcoin. It's owning neutral reserve asset for the next hundreds, thousands years. Buy that asset. And then also it's like huge investments in AI. Like, you want to have sovereign capacity there. So I think that's the move. If you can't stop the train, you've got to print the money, you've got to go through it, and you've got to acquire compute and acquire Bitcoin. I think that is the answer.
Yep, that's well put, Alchemist, in the chat. The pace of change in AI far outpaces the capacity for human adjustment. I think that's true. Let's play this clip from James Lavish, on what Bitcoin did with Danny Knowles. And
so the issue is that you start seeing companies closing, defaults, and it rolls, because then you have this guy default that might trip somebody else default, and then because you have this guy's depending on this guy, so there's some contagion there. And then you just start getting people laid off, and they start getting laid off these companies. Unemployment starts to rise. You go into a recession, yet prices are still going up. It's awful. And that's where the stagflation is. You've got the market coming down, prices of everything going up, investors will flee to things like gold. And I think they would flee to things like Bitcoin because you still have inflation rates rising. Now we're running such high deficits, fiscal deficits, and you get into recession, it just makes the deficits wider. The whole world, it's not just the US. Our whole foundation is built on borrowing, leverage, and debt. And so that means that you must have expansion of leverage and debt to keep going.
Yeah, this actually dovetails back into the same conversation. It's like another scenario, the stagflation scenario.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that possibility? We got the hyperinflation, the kind of stagflation, and then deflation driven by tech and maybe the monetary forces of Bitcoin. What do you guys think how's it going to play out with prices and leverage and debt and everything in the next like 10, 15 years?
Yeah, going off what we just said, I think AI saves us from the worst of stagflation. You know what I mean? To be really like all in a stagflation outcome, you have to be predicting a really slowing economic time. And I do honestly believe AI saves us from that. I do honestly believe that having this technology coming online does boost GDP in a big way. Will you have inflation? Yeah, you'll have inflation, but it's also this fiscal driven stuff. And I think it's a novel environment. I think it basically doesn't, I read a great thread on this, but it like doesn't compare to stagflation in the past. I think stagflation in the past, which was not fiscal driven and it was in much less advanced economies, I think will be understood as a different thing relative to what you might see today. In some ways, like the inflation rate is a political choice for the US. It's choosing how much to print, how much fiscal spending, how much to bring to market. And I think they're gonna, and it's like even the GDP growth there is in like nominal terms in some ways, right? As you bring the thing is like you raise the inflation rate by printing the money and spending the money, but then in doing that, you raise the GDP because the GDP is nominally determined. Real GDP might be negative, but I think GDP will not be. I think you probably don't get into it, at least on a technical term. And you can argue with that and you can say, oh, that's not how we should be thinking of it, but welcome to fiat.
Welcome to fiat.
Yeah. Did we show the Trump rocket fuel tweet yet, Brady? If we have, I think we should just show it.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not confirmed.
I didn't know this was real. Holy.
I haven't confirmed. I haven't confirmed that this is real or not. It's too good. It's one of those that's like certainly plausible, right?
So I don't have a Truth Social account, but there are accounts that reliably, at least historically, repost what Trump has posted to Truth Social, and they did repost this one to Twitter like 4 hours ago.
Yeah, that's probably a good signal.
Yeah, as far as I know, this is a real tweet. And Brady, I didn't need this one over my head, but maybe Trump using the word rocket as he's like having a spat with Elon. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but people have been talking about this run it hot thesis for now. Some people have been talking about it for months, but now it's even more common to talk about it over the last few weeks. And the president is literally tweeting rocket fuel ! So if you needed any more confirmation that we're in a run it hot environment, I don't know what to tell you.
It's real. I just found it.
There you go.
There you go.
Incredible.
Rocket fuel.
I did not think that was going to be real.
So
let me for a full point.
Yeah. I will just say one thing. This is like the tariff stuff where I'm not necessarily defending Trump, but he has been consistent on this stuff. Tariffs were not a secret to him. He didn't keep them a secret to other people. And people were surprised when he followed through with tariffs. And same thing with this. When he was campaigning, he wasn't even elected yet. The All In podcast asked him, what are you going to do about the debt? At no point did he say we're going to reduce spending or outright reduce the debt. He only said we're going to grow. So like he hasn't lied on that one, just for clarity there.
Yeah, totally. He's been consistent in many ways.
I was gonna say, this system could probably go on for another decade or two, to be honest, just by debasing everyone. But to Steven's point, best case scenario.
How long can you kick it down the road? Yeah.
How long? And to Steven's point, best case scenario would be like some combination of productivity and then not the whole scary fourth turning kinetic war side, but more bit bonds, something positive.
Yeah. People are working hard on those. Shout out BPI.
I just want to thank Mara really quickly for securing the Bitcoin network and for supporting this show. Thanks also to BTC in DC. Swan's working with George Washington University and BTC Prague to put on an awesome conference in DC. You can check it out at btcindc.com, coming up late September this year. It's going to be a really unique one. And of course, always brought to you by Swan Private. We are here to help you build generational wealth, and these three guys know all about it.